Okay. Welcome to this first module of the education for the Spera Impact Standard version 3.1. I'm Björn, and I'm the founder of Spera Impact and I'm the guy who is behind the Spera Impact Standard. We have made seven modules which will go through the standard and how it affects the current marketplace. We'll go into the depth of the architecture, and we will also look into how sovereigns and project developers will benefit from using our standard. I will now share the presentation and the education. I hope you all can see it. So the first module is to set the stage for where we're at with the climate markets. These are markets in transition for sure. I will go through the learning objectives, then some basics, then some key global frameworks, some challenges in the market. We'll look at a few of the greenwashing and trust breakdowns with some case studies. We will look at the regulatory converse. We will look at the role of digital trust infrastructure. Then we will speak a bit about going from the voluntary confusion, as I call it, to the institutional readiness. There's some reflection activity, some knowledge check, and then it's a wrap up and key takeaways. And just briefly at the end, I will tell you about the next module and some contact and support information. So the learning objectives for this first module is that I hope you will learn more around what's so you're able to identify the differences between the voluntary and the compliance markets, that you understand the role of VCMI, ICVCM, CORSIA, UNFCCC, etc. in shaping the integrity, that you recognize some key failures in legacy carbon markets, and that you can articulate the need for digital transformation in climate infrastructure. If we look at the carbon markets globally, they are normally divided into two. We have the voluntary market and the compliance market. The voluntary markets, the actors there are like companies like Microsoft, Shell, and there are NGOs. And the rules are private certifiers. So this is private entities or NGOs that has made standards and certify projects, and integrity varies a lot. If we look at the compliance markets, that's the regulated market. It's countries, it's official entities, there are government agreements, and there are legal bindings. For example, Switzerland is a huge actor in this space. They are part of Article 6 club with several other countries where they do international transfer of mitigation objects. So we will go more into the depth of this, but the voluntary market, you could say, is the private part, and the compliance market currently is the official or governmental part. If we look at the key global frameworks, it all starts with the Paris Agreement, which followed the Kyoto Agreement. And for the carbon markets is the Paris Agreement crediting mechanism, the PACM. And in our case, what is especially interesting and is developing a lot now is the Article 6.2 and Article 6.4, which is compliance mechanisms for international carbon trading, meaning selling carbon credits, for example, from Madagascar to Switzerland, and then Switzerland can sell it, for example, to some Swiss official entities. One of the other key frameworks that we have implemented is what is called the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction. They have some CRM tools, some risk management tools that we have built into the standard to make sure that if something should happen out of which has a risk for the project and the carbon credits, we should be sure that we have implemented tools that reduce the risk or mitigate the risk. Then you have ICVCM, which has the core carbon principles, and VCMI, which has the claim code of practice for the core carbon principles. They are driving the voluntary market towards the compliance market, so to say, meaning you get better knowledge about the projects. You remove the possibility for greenwashing or greenhushing. So that's like super important to integrate, and we have integrated all the 10 carbon principles into our standard. So there should be no issue related to that. I just got a message from Annelise. Okay. Sorry. The next framework, which is essential, is the UNFCCC ETF, so the Enhanced Transparency Framework, which is reporting under Article 13 of the Paris Agreement. And one of the other important frameworks is CORSIA, which is the International Aviation Offset System. We have looked and analyzed and reviewed now the version 3.1 of our standard, for example, related to the Article 6.4 of the Paris Agreement. And the conclusion is that this version of our standard demonstrates robust, comprehensive, and digitally native alignment with all core requirements under Article 6.4 methodologies. Each of the 38 appendixes addresses specific Article 6.4 closest to cryptographically verifiable mechanisms, AI-enabled MRV, jurisdictional nesting, and sovereign-linked compliance tools. This positions SIS as an Article 6.4 ready standard across governance, environmental integrity, and transparency dimensions. This is just one of the reviews we've done. I will share with you a document showing all the sort of different frameworks, etc., that we have reviewed our standard towards, and it's a document of 30-40 pages at least, but I will forward that on the group later on. If you look at the market challenges now, and then we're talking mainly about the voluntary market. There is a lot of lack of transparency in project data and claims. There have been a lot of double counting risks and juridical disputes. There have been permanency and reversal uncertainty, and the legacy MRV processes are static. They are mostly paper-based and then unverifiable. If you look at the eroding of trust, the project that really made the kick off this was the Kariba project. I don't know if you know about it, but if you research Kariba, then you will find a lot of articles. This is just one from Carbon Sync, but they are all over. And this is a project that shows how bad it actually can go if things are not done correctly. For example, we have examples where a family in Sydney, Australia, wanted to make their home or their new house carbon neutralized. They bought this house from an entrepreneur that had an agreement with a Australian carbon company, and this carbon company had done an agreement with the Swiss company South Pole for this Kariba project, and it was verified by Vera. When the, let's say it like this, when the shit hit the fan, nobody could prove that what the family in Sydney had paid to get their house carbon neutralized ever resulted in any effect or climate impact in Zimbabwe and the Kariba project. And then going backwards, of course, the family will then claim like we would like to have some verification or certification of this, and that the entrepreneur could not give that. The carbon trader in Australia couldn't do that. South Pole couldn't do that, and Vera couldn't do that. And then, of course, the family in Sydney say, well, we want our money back. And then they tell this to the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur takes that to the carbon trader, that takes it to South Pole, and then the ball is rolling. And so Kariba is most likely the most written about. We have several projects in the same sort of space. We have Shell, which has some phantom credits. We have a Meta Netflix project in Kenya, and the latest is Sequest with some cook stoves. And this is system failures. There are lack of MRVs, there are lack of letter of approval, there's lack of approval from the local communities and double counting. So this is just a few of the challenges. And if somebody thinks that the compliance market is not impacted in the same way, then you can just Google the Swedish national or the Swedish environmental department that made also a huge project in Africa. They invested somewhat 60 million, and what they got out was just a few 100,000 of carbon credits. And this is the challenges in the market. That's the challenges I saw. And that coming from a bank and insurance background, having had to do with audit trails and audits and auditors for a lot of years, then combine into the ESG reporting or the environmental and social and governance reporting, I saw that there's a place for something that is better. And that's sort of the stepstone that I used to make the Spera Impact Standard. We could go deeper into the project, but for example, Kariba has an inflated baseline. They didn't really know what was there before we started. We ensure this with a very conservative baseline. We use satellite imagery at least 10 years back. Now we have the potential to go even 13 years back, meaning everything that is there before we start planting, we know about, and we X them out, so they are not included in our counting of carbon credits. And this gives us a conservative but very correct baseline. If you look at the Shell project that went wrong, there were phantom adjustments. And what we have done is that we have put the corresponding adjustment tagging mandatory onto the blockchain. So it's not possible to make up this in any way. And for Sequest, there was invalid usage, problems with cook stoves that were to be there that wasn't there, etc. And that's where our validated DAO, so decentralized autonomous organization, prevent credit misallocations. The end of this is that this, of course, impact corporate's credibility. It impacts buyers' confidence, and it ends up in investors' withdrawal from unperforming offset portfolios. And if we take a look at what is happening in the voluntary market currently, is that we see a lot of registries which are fully withdrawn. We see a lot of retirements that never would reach the core carbon principles. And if you look at the more than 32,000 projects that are in this space globally, more than 50, most likely we're talking about 70 to 80% of these projects will never be able to reach the core carbon principles, and they should actually either be removed completely, or they should be recertified. And we are actually in a position that we can do this recertification of projects with the platform we have. Because of course there are a lot of good things that has come out of this all these projects, but it needs to be recertified to reach the level that now is needed, or is a demand in the marketplace. If we look at the regulatory converse, now mainly from 2024 till 2027, what is really being pushing now is the ESG reporting, both in EU with the CSRD, similar with SEC in the US. I saw Uzbekistan now has come with their national carbon rules and reporting. It's similar or based on the CSRD. The biggest companies has to do their ESG reporting as from 2024, so meaning they this year have to deliver ESG reports for 2024. There are some omnibuses that most likely will be approved under EU that gives the companies a longer time to implement because they see it's quite a lot, especially on Scope 3 disclosures. But it will happen. But the lobbying is quite hard to make it easier for the companies. And I have seen reports that signalize that if all the companies globally should follow these sort of rules, starting off from GRI, which is the global organization that make accounting rules and also then reporting rules. 90 to 95% of all global companies would go bankrupt if they had to repair the damage they are doing to the environment. And that's maybe not something anybody wants. The SBTI and the CDP alignment, it pressures on companies what they can be allowed to remove by credits. I think they are actually a bit too hard because if you look at what they suggest is that it's very, very few percentages of the total emissions that will be allowed to compensate with credits. I often say that if you think you're able to remove all offsets without all emissions without offsets, then I think you need to rethink because Scope 3, which is the indirect emissions, are related to your employees, your suppliers, and your customers. And I don't know currently any company that can do without all of these three. If you have a company without employees, well, that's maybe possible. A company without suppliers could also be possible, but a company without customers, well, why do you have then a company? So I don't think it's possible, to be honest, to do without offsets. In 2026, we will have the Corsa Phase 2 expansion. We will also see now, starting from 2026, the CBAM, which is the carbon, the rules for importing goods to Europe is starting to take place. This will demand a lot related to how the corporates have to act and what they have to onboard of offsets. What we have done is that we have pre-integrated CSRD and SEC in the reporting outputs from our platform, meaning if you buy an offset, it will be linked directly to the emission. And this is something nobody else has done in the marketplace, which I have seen so far at least. When we come to the role of digital trust infrastructure, what we have done with our architecture is that we have made immutable audit trails from plant level till retirement, put on our Ethereum and Solana blockchains. We have privacy preserving verification, which is called ZK-MRV for the MRV system. We use smart contracts for being able to make programmable credit issuance. And we have also integrated LOIs, which is the letter of approval, and the enhanced transparency framework, so we can mirror sovereign nodes, meaning if we have some project in a country, this can be mirrored directly into their sovereign system, which then gives them knowledge about what sort of credits has been sold from our country to another country. And they will have all the data and location around that. And this is how we replace audits with cryptographic data layers. So we take audit 2 or 3 steps further with the layers we have. But this will be gone more in the depth in the next module. So as you understand and I think you will maybe will agree with me that we're going from voluntary confusion to institutional readiness, and we actually have to do that. We need to do transition from project level documentation to protocol level compliance. Buyers require that there's an evolution from offsets to net contribution, and the digital standards as infrastructure makes actually our standard a trust fabric. And that's why we have integrated in our smart credit tags for the LOAs and the correcting adjustments. Let's think of one example where carbon credits failed to deliver on their promise. What went wrong? And how could we have redesigned one failed carbon project using our validator process? This is very simple. If we take this Kariba project, for example, if they had implemented our MRV system, and if they had implemented the use of all the layers, meaning they would have IoT sensors on the ground, they would have people taking pictures when a tree has been planted, then when it's validated, when it's certified, then adding the drone layer, and then adding the satellite layer, and then on top putting our AI and machine learning layer, it would never have happened that the Kariba project had failed. Actually, what would have happened is that they would have an amazing project which would have delivered tons of carbon credits and huge impact locally and globally. But it just failed, and they had chosen to use Vera, one of the 2 biggest. Vera and Gold Standard are the 2 biggest standards out there currently. But I saw just yesterday a report that now these registries are starting to lose market space to new registries, and it's because they are not in the digital world. They are costly. They are not able to give full proof of the project. They have, for example, they just take samples, meaning if you have a field of 2,000 hectares with mangrove, which then would be 2.5 million mangrove, they just pick out a few hundred examples, and then they say, well, this is covering all of them. And that's not the way it has to be. You need to know that, for example, that no tree is exactly same as another tree, and you need to have the facts at the tree level. That's what we are putting in. So we have this knowledge check, and with a little quiz. What is a CA? And that is the corresponding adjustment. It's not certified activity. It's not carbon accounting. Then what is ZK MRV? It's not zero emission key. It's the zero knowledge monitoring, reporting, and verification. And what defines a smart credit, it is that it has a letter of approval and a corresponding adjustment on the credits. Meaning there's nobody who say, well, I'm missing some credits here, so I put something more, or I remove something. Our credits are actually fact-based, data-based, and fully auditable from we plant them till they are retired after minimum 40 years. To wrap up this module, the climate market are in flux. Integrity and compliance are now essential. That's, for example, why we have built in full KYC, KYB, AML, so meaning full anti-money laundering. It's not possible to get any money out of a project without the system knowing who you are. And we have even put third-party certification on that to make it even better. Because we cannot have fraud, we cannot have corruption, etc. in this, because then we are lacking trust again. We see that the frameworks are converging towards digital accountable systems. There are several entities out there in sort of our space, but nobody has gone as far as we have done. So if I was a bit bold, I would say that we have the highest quality possible on nature-based projects for projects that will use our standard and our digital MRV system. And because our response to these challenges is built in integrity. So we go from audit gaps to automated assurance, and we are compliance native from block to the sovereign registry. The next module is on the architecture of the Spera Impact Standard. We will explore more about the smart credits. We will look more into the zero knowledge MRV, and we will dive deeper into digital governance. This module will be held on the 16th of July at 6 p.m. Central European time. And those who are interested can send an email to hello@speraimpact.academy or reach out through Slack or through our websites. So with this, thank you for joining. And this module is part of our Academy, 7 modules. And if you do all this, you will be certified as a steward of compliance and inclusive climate finance. So with this, I thank you for joining this education, and I look forward to see you on the next module. Thanks for now. Ciao, ciao.